Fala galera, tudo bem? Sejam bem-vindos aí a mais uma entrevista aqui, né? Mais um programa Raio-X de Mercado da UniBTC. E hoje eu tenho uma presença ilustre aqui, cara, que é o Paolo, né? CTO da Tether. E vocês aí que gostariam de saber mais sobre a Tether, estão sempre me perguntando, né? É sempre um tema bastante polêmico no mercado cripto. Hoje vocês terão a oportunidade de conhecer um pouquinho mais sobre a Tether, né? E tirar suas dúvidas, né? Para que vocês realmente possam ter a informação diretamente da fonte. Então, agradeço desde já o Paolo, né? Por ele conceder essa entrevista aqui para nós, né? Eu fiquei sabendo que ele participaria apenas aqui com a gente e também com o pessoal da Forbes, então é um privilégio estar aqui com ele hoje, tá? E eu de imediato, eu peço para que ele se apresente aqui para nossa comunidade, né? Hoje nós somos um dos maiores canais aqui do Brasil, focado em trade, né? Inclusive um dos maiores da América Latina, e eu abro aí para que ele possa se apresentar, para que a nossa audiência conheça um pouquinho do Paolo, né? O que o Paolo faz, qual é a função dele na Tether, né? Para que o pessoal já conheça um pouquinho do Paolo.
First of all, thank you very much for having me this evening. So it's really a pleasure. I'm Paolo Ardoino. I'm a CTO at Tether. Tether is the largest and most used stablecoin in the world. In my day activity at Tether, I take care of the security aspects. I believe that security is one of the most critical parts of the crypto industry. So I take care of reviewing all the blockchains that the Tether is going to be issued and launched on, as well as I review the daily operativity of the development team as well as I take care of some aspects of the public face of the company. So I'm the guy that basically on Twitter responds to the trolls.
Legal demais. E eu já queria de imediato, né, já fazer a primeira pergunta para você, que seria: qual é a origem da história do Tether, né? Como que essa necessidade surgiu da Bitfinex e qual seria a relação, né, da Tether com a corretora, né?
A little bit of history. So Tether was born in 2014. I'm not sure how many of you were around that time in the Bitcoin history, but 2013 was quite an interesting moment for Bitcoin. It was the first time that Bitcoin price surpassed $1,000, and there were few exchanges already around. Bitfinex was one of them. There was OKCoin and a few others. And the issue at that time was that when sometimes the price of Bitcoin was really far off between exchanges. On Bitfinex, for example, was $1,000. On OKX was $1,200. So $200 difference is a huge difference, right? So that is what we call spread across exchanges. And the reason for that was quite evident. In 2013, banks were quite uncomfortable with Bitcoin. Most of the banks are still uncomfortable today with Bitcoin, but let's say in 2013, the situation was much worse. So, in order to send a wire between different exchanges in order to buy Bitcoin, it was taking from one day if you were really, really lucky, but most of the time it was 5 days, or your wire could have been also cancelled and not going through. And why it is important? The reason is that in order to have healthy financial markets that are markets that are traded on multiple exchanges, multiple trading locations, you have to give the traders the opportunity to do arbitrage. Arbitrage is the simple action of buying an asset where the price is lower and selling it where the price is higher. And you keep doing this back and forth until the price on all the locations where you are trading is basically aligned. So if people keep buying Bitcoin where the price is lower, and they keep selling where the price is higher, and they move back the funds that they got, the dollars where they got where the price was higher, onto the exchange where the price is lower, and keep doing this in circle, then basically the buying pressure and the sell pressure will keep the price aligned across the different trading venues. This is called arbitrage. And the problem is that in order to do this, right, so when you sell Bitcoin where the price is higher, you get dollars. So you have to take those dollars, wire those dollars on the exchange where the price is lower, so that you can buy Bitcoin, then send the Bitcoin where again on the exchange where the price is higher, and so on and so forth. So the action of wiring funds from one exchange to another, as I said before, it was extremely slow, painful. Banks were rejecting wires and so on. And even in the best situation, it was taking still one day. So you can imagine that in one day, 24 hours or anyway, 12 hours, your arbitrage opportunity was completely gone. The price was moved already and so on. So everything was extremely, extremely inefficient. So the simple, and I would say even stupid idea that Tether had was, okay, why we have Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin was powered by this amazing new technology called blockchain. And as we know, Bitcoin moves, you can send Bitcoin from one exchange to another in 10 minutes, because the block time of Bitcoin is around 10 minutes. So the simple idea was, okay, why we don't take this amazing new technology and we use the same technology to move dollars? So the brilliant idea, as simple but really brilliant idea of Tether's team was, why we don't put a dollar on a blockchain? And that is how Tether was born. So in 2014, and from 2014, Tether team started working and started to integrate OmniLayer, that was the first, let's say, was a Bitcoin sidechain with color coins, so the ability to create your own assets on top of a blockchain. And at the end of 2014, the first test transactions of Tether were sent around. And from 2015, early 2015, Tether was ready to be adopted by crypto exchanges. Tether was off to a slow start in 2015, but in 2016, we have seen Poloniex being the first wide adopter of Tether, alongside with Bitfinex. So then was actually in 2017, the price when we all know what happened in 2017. There was the ICO boom, many assets were launched, Ethereum was becoming extremely popular. So at that time, most of the exchanges had banking issues, had fiat on ramp issues. So all these exchanges started to list all these new assets, all these new ICOs, all these new trading pairs, not against dollar or any other currency, all against Tether. So Tether at that time became the most popular, fiat replacement in the world, thanks to this, all of a sudden mass adoption across the entire crypto community. And at the end of 2017 was the first moment when Tether broke $1 billion in market cap. Then 2018 was another good year. I think that Kraken started adopting Tether as well, and started listing the first fiat pairs against Tether, USDT. And then at the time also, I forgot to mention, in 2017, also Binance was born. Huobi started adopting Tether as well, OKX, OKCoin. Everyone basically was really supporting Tether. At the end of 2018, the issuance of Tether was, if I'm not wrong, was surpassing already 2 billion. and we know in 2019 was starting to grow even a fast pace. And we jumped to 2021. That is, of course, the year of the big stablecoin boom, where Tether basically moved from 20 billion to 72 billion and a half dollars as of today.
Agora nós vamos fazer a segunda pergunta, né? Agradeço desde já, né, pela resposta da primeira pergunta. E agora eu tenho a segunda pergunta, né? Que com certeza para mim é um ponto importante, que assim, eu fico pensando, né? Caramba, da onde que surgiu essa ideia, né, de criar uma stablecoin, né? Porque hoje você tem vários concorrentes, né? Mas a minha pergunta é, qual foi o ponto de virada, né, para o uso e a adoção da stablecoin, né?
Yeah, I think that the turning point was actually the fact that traders really understood the power of having dollars that could be moved in really fast, right? So I mentioned that Tether was started on the OmniLayer blockchain, so it was moving at 10. You could move dollars on a blockchain within 10 minutes, but then. At the end of 2017, Tether started to support also Ethereum and with the ERC20 standard. So now you could send Tethers around in seconds. So you can see that traders will start seeing Tether not just as a token, but actually as dollars. So this realization, the fact that tens of thousands of traders every single day we're starting using a token, an asset that it started replacing dollars and the need to go to your bank account, to set up a wire, to wait for the wire, to pay a lot of fees, because actually sending wires around costs quite some fees. Then that the moment of the traders really made the success of Tether in the first instance. So they really understood the potential, the power, and they were extremely surprised. And in the end, they couldn't do their job without it. So all the exchanges that didn't have Tether were suddenly forced to adopt Tether. Otherwise, they were kept outside of the loop, outside of the trading opportunities. So you start from one exchange, two exchanges, then 5 exchanges, and then basically Tether today is on, I would say, 99% of all exchanges on this earth. I'm talking mainly about crypto exchanges. And then this realization that started from the traders now is expanding quickly, really quickly to e-commerces or companies that are doing remittances. Because again, we live in a world where Visa and MasterCard are making 3%, 4% in fees on top of each transaction, and companies that are taking care of remittances are charging up to 10% of fees. That is insane, and Tether completely removes that. Tether is free to use, of course. You have to pay the blockchain fees. So this growing realization that goes at the same pace of crypto becoming mainstream is what is making Tether success.
Bacana, legal. Obrigado aí. Gratidão, tá? Obrigado. Vamos lá, terceira pergunta, tá? Essa pergunta com certeza é uma pergunta que muita gente me faz, né? Às vezes no PV, principalmente meus alunos, né? Que seria quais são as regras e políticas de emissão do Tether e como que a companhia consegue assegurar que toda nova emissão é totalmente lastreada.
Yes, so first of all, let's start with understanding how the process of acquiring Tethers work. Right? Let's say you are a user, a Tether user, and you want to acquire new Tethers. So you can send $100,000 to the Tether platform in order to get back 100,000 Tethers USDT. So the process is simple, right? So the Tether company receives a wire and creates and issues and sends the same amount of Tethers back to the user. So there is no magic actually, right? So it's simple as that. Then if the user that has these 100,000 tethers wants to send back the tethers to Tether Limited and get back his wire, his dollars, then the process is simple as is inverse. So the user sends these 100,000 tethers back to the Tether Treasury wallet, and then Tether Limited will send back these 100,000 USD via a wire. So the process, as you see, is extremely simple. There is no magic. And you ask how Tether can ensure that the total Tether USDT issued and all the other, of course, flavors of Tether are fully backed. And so the way the process is extremely simple. So there is a portfolio that Tether Limited is managing, and the value of that portfolio that contain cash equivalents and other assets has always to be bigger. The value of that portfolio has to be higher than the total Tether tokens issued, and there is a quarterly attestation that ensures that that is true, right? So Tether in 2021 started to produce a quarterly attestation through Moore Kaiman, that is part of Moore Global, that is one of the 10 top accounting firms in this world that checks the Tether accounts and reviews that the portfolio is liquid, is safe, and so on, and provides the attestation showing that all the Tether tokens are all the issued Tether tokens are 100% backed.
Bacana.
And if I can add, also Tether is also the first stable coin that is going through a full audit. So it's not that we perform the attestation and we are relaxed and we are not planning to do anything, right? So with the attestation comes the and we decided to do an additional step that is called breakdown reserve. So we are showing to the public, because it is important for us, the transparency aspects of the attestation. We are showing to all the Tether users the breakdown reserve, so how his portfolio is composed, and also for the well-known nowadays commercial papers. We are also showing the ratings. The ratings are extremely important because they show that the portfolio is safe, is extremely liquid, and these commercial papers are, the vast majority of these commercial papers is rated A2 or better. The rating is provided by Standard & Poor's, that is a US company. And as I said before, we are not finished. We are going through the process of obtaining a full audit. That is something that no other stablecoin has, and we are not even just focusing on 2021. We are starting from 2018 because we want to prove that all the Tethers have been always backed also years before, right? So we do 2012, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and we will then continue onwards, providing also the full audit. So this is the way that we believe we can put to bed all the critics, because, and again, I want to underline that these critics are not really criticizing our competition that so far have been much less open to sharing than us.
Ok. E me diz aí, qual é a relação entre Tether e Bitfinex?
Bitfinex and Tether are two quite different companies. So Bitfinex is one of the major exchanges in the world and has also quite a few interesting products. And Tether is the major stablecoin in the world. So these two companies have two different teams. although there are some shareholders that are in common and some operatives that in the management are in common. But these two teams have two different operations, they do offer two different services and so on. So I would say that the great minds that were involved in Bitfinex also created this brilliant idea of Tether, because there was, and Tether, as I explained before, was created from the need of the crypto industry. So I think that it's, I unfortunately I was not part of either the two groups. I joined a little bit later, I joined in early 2015. But I think that I'm really proud of the team that was first involved in Bitfinex and then created Tether. So, you cannot limit innovation, you cannot limit creativity. So it is expected that, and should not surprise that, in this emerging world that is crypto, there is a little bit overlapping, because ideas are, flowing freely. And of course, as I said before, these two companies though have two different teams and are providing two different products and services.
Agora eu tenho 3 perguntas numa só, tá? Eu acho que é uma das perguntas mais polêmicas das perguntas que eu separei, né? Eu procurei pegar, né, algumas perguntas, ouvir um pouco assim da audiência, né, entender, né, o que as pessoas gostariam de saber da Tether. E agora nós temos 3 perguntas numa só, tá? Então vamos lá. Quero que você preste atenção para ver se você vai conseguir me ajudar aí. Primeiro, nessa pergunta, havia um processo, né, nos Estados Unidos envolvendo a Tether. E aí a gente quer saber como se deu esse processo. E aí a segunda, por que houve a necessidade de pagamento para o encerramento do processo? E a terceira pergunta, qual foi o final do processo?
I think that we are referring to the CFTC settlement. The CFTC settlement is a settlement, is not a fine, first of all. And if you read it, does not contain admission of wrongdoing. What have been found as part of this settlement is that in 2017, 2018, Tether had some issues with banking. So it was using, as you know, as I mentioned before, that was a really critical time for crypto. The ICO boom was around, and there was a lot of concerns from financial institutions that was concerned mainly, I believe, driven by competition. So banks were definitely not happy about this surging new world that is crypto and Bitcoin. So that was also reflecting on the difficulty of maintaining healthy banking relationships. And so Tether was using different payment processors, as our legal general counsel said also in a Twitter thread, was using different payment processors. So part of the money that was backing the issued Tethers was actually not in a bank account in Tether's name, but was in part in a bank account in Tether's name, in part was sitting with these third-party providers. And that does not mean that Tether was not 100% backed, right? So, but what we have been found of was that we should have disclosed this information more clearly to the public. And in fact, as the settlement says or shows, is that this matter was resolved in February 2019. So Tether, there was no admission of wrongdoing in the settlement agreement, and that is really important. The issue with the clarification of how the Tether reserves are maintained have been clarified in February 2019. there is no consideration or there is no issue with the current Tether operations. I believe that is quite important. So it means that after 2000, we as Tether clarified clarified how the reserves are maintained, and we have been more clear with our users. No other issues have been found by the CFTC, and then hence the settlement came, right? So this is really the really important fact that I want to stress is that the focus of the CFTC was actually from 2016 to late 2018, beginning of 2019. So, and the matter that there were let's say the core of the settlement have been addressed in early 2019. So this is in a way old news, is referring to a period where the entire crypto industry had difficulty in maintaining healthy banker relationship. And also in 2019, Tether was able to obtain extremely stable and solid banking relationship. And in fact, this issue is not present anymore. We have been clear with the community. We have provided, we have updated the website to reflect how we operate and so on. So everything is clear, and I think that the level of transparency that we have been providing since 2019 has been, in my opinion, astonishing and continuously growing.
Legal. E falando questão agora da concorrência, né? Por exemplo, eu já estou no mercado já há uns 5 anos e meio, né? Então eu peguei logo no início ali quando foi lançado a Tether, né? E não tinha muitas opções, né? Nós só tínhamos a Tether na época. E hoje você tem várias outras stablecoins, né? E aí a minha pergunta é como a Tether se compara, né, com as outras stablecoins, né, em questão de diferencial, né? O que diferencia a Tether, né, das outras stablecoins? E por que você acha que surgiram tantos concorrentes e stablecoins em dólar?
So let me start saying that Tether likes competition. And competition is at the heart of the crypto industry in general, but also the stablecoin industry, right? So you cannot call something an industry if you are the only one that is in there, right? So Tether created the entire stablecoin market with USDT in 2014, and now I'm extremely glad that others are taking our direction and are seeing the potential of what we created. And governments are talking about stablecoins. Everyone now is talking about stablecoins. So we're extremely proud of that. When it comes to the other stablecoins, I believe that there is a few big differences. First of all, Tether was created as a child of the crypto industry, or the Bitcoin industry, right? So was created for a necessity of crypto. So who created Tether is actually a group of Bitcoiners, a group of idealists, a group of people that do care about bringing change and revolution to finance. So Tether is there for all the unbanked. In the world, there are more than 1 billion people that don't have a bank account because they cannot afford to have a bank account. That is a crazy thing to even be said, but it means that there are people that are so poor that banks don't want to touch them even with a long stick. So Tether is a product for them, is a product that is for everyone, is a way to cut intermediaries. Today, as I said before, we have Visa, MasterCard, so many companies that want a cut of your money. They want, every time you send a transaction, there is someone that these corporates, they want a cut of it, right? So, and Tether is there to say no, was created for that. So we have seen, of course, bankers now jumping on the bandwagon of stablecoins because they see as an opportunity just to make money out of it. But this is not us. This is not how Tether was started. Tether started to be an extremely positive movement, to bring to cut the fees, to leave the money of the people to the people. So this is, I believe, the main difference that we have. Also, Tether is growing. So the absolute distance between Tether and the second largest stablecoin continues to grow. I believe that today is around 40 billion. So there is no doubt that Tether is the king of stablecoins.
Bem, agora a nossa última pergunta, né? Até que passou rápido aqui a nossa entrevista, né? Quais seriam os objetivos, né, da empresa para o Brasil, né? Haja vista que nós ainda não temos a Tether presente nas corretoras brasileiras, né? Existe um plano para o Brasil?
I think that Tether is definitely looking at expanding in Brazil and in general Latin America. Again, we are seeing, and you're right, in this moment is not widely adopted, but I think that it will quickly change. As imagine where was crypto a few years ago. Crypto 3 years ago was 2018. We were at the beginning of the crypto winter. Was a really different moment than the one we are today. So imagine where we can be in 3 years, right? So, and the pace of growth, the pace of innovation, the pace of capital investments is extremely fast now, much faster than before. So I think that Tether really wants to position itself, as I said before, as the stable coin that will cut intermediaries for the benefit of Brazil and many other countries. We believe that Brazil has and is one of the countries where you can see more remittances. You can see there is a really important footprint of online business, online commerce. So in for all these use cases, you can imagine that you can save a lot of fees, a lot of money for the population, and that is money that remains in their hands, in their pockets, right? So it's not a question of if Tether will become popular or will be helpful to Brazil. It is just a question of growth and when, because we know that Tether is the right instrument for Brazil.
Legal, bacana. Bem, te agradecer, né, pelo seu tempo, por você ter disponibilizado, né, seu tempo para participar dessa entrevista. Acredito que com certeza foi uma maneira, né, não só da nossa audiência aqui da UniBTC, mas também os brasileiros conhecerem um pouquinho mais, e com certeza outros países também de língua portuguesa e até pessoas também de outras línguas vão conhecer um pouquinho mais, né, da história da Tether, né? Nada melhor do que ouvir da própria fonte. E eu já te faço um convite, né? No dia 30 de abril e dia 22 de maio de 2022, nós devemos ter o maior congresso de inteligência financeira e criptomoedas do Brasil. Então, te faço o convite, se você quiser participar, né? Você pode participar aí do nosso evento, palestrar ou participar de uma entrevista com a gente no evento. Vai ser em São Paulo, né? Um evento aí para mais de 2.000 pessoas. Então, fica o convite aí para você, tá, Paulo? E gratidão por tudo, tá, querido?
First of all, thank you very much for having me. I mean, it means a lot to myself and all the Tether team, because we feel like it's important to continue, the mission and reach people, reach groups like you that take care of education, right? Because education is actually the most important thing that we have to do, because Bitcoin is such a powerful movement, is such a powerful tool, and we have to make sure that when we talk a lot about mass adoption, and mass adoption needs to will be reached only when people actually understand why this movement was started. That is a movement or reaction against the traditional financial world, and is a movement of freedom and inclusion. So I really, the thing that you are doing is extremely important, is extremely appreciated, education is at the key, at the core of this entire industry. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk to your audience. And of course, I would be, if COVID restrictions permitting, I would love to, of course, travel and meet you in person.
É bem provável da gente estar liberado, né, nessa questão do Covid, né? O Brasil, agora, até o final do ano, praticamente quase toda a população já vai estar vacinada. Então é por isso que, inclusive, os eventos para o ano de 2022 já estão sendo programados, né, para voltar, né? E eu faço convite para vir presencial mesmo. Não sei se ele já veio para o Brasil, né, se ele já conheceu o Brasil, mas ele vir presencial para conhecer aqui as terras aqui e poder participar presencialmente. Fica o convite aí.
Absolutely, that would be lovely. Thank you very much again.